Hello, Brian Casel here. I'm the founder of Clarity Flow, and I'm back with another conversation with a coach. His name is Rich Visotcky. He is an expert in the world of Scrum. That is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a software development framework methodology for organizing and communicating with your team in sort of a different way than the traditional way that software traditionally has been built. We get into it a little bit, but don't worry, this is not a super technical code related conversation. What I'm more interested in is Rich's practice as a coach and a trainer. We covered some really interesting aspects here. We covered the combination, the pairing of formal training with coaching, how training often spawns coaching engagements, and sometimes the other way around, where coaching kind of uncovers gaps in some knowledge gaps, as Rich put it, which can open the door to new training sessions. We also talked about coaching in a team context rather than just the one-to-one coach-client relationship. In most of Rich's work, he's working with large organizations and IT and technical teams, and coming in as an outside consultant into these organizations to help guide the way as they institute Scrum methodologies. We also talked about just that, actually working with large organizations which may have their own dynamics, different company cultures, some company politics at play, and how Rich, as the coach, can sort of navigate that with his clients. And then finally, how Rich's affiliation with Scrum.org, the organization behind this methodology, how he's involved there, and how that's actually been the community and the platform that keeps him connected to this whole methodology and coaching practice, and that's how the main driver of Rich's client base. So a lot of ground we covered here. I think it's a sort of a unique one compared to my other conversations. So I hope you enjoy it. Here's my conversation with Rich Visotcky. Enjoy. Rich Visotcky, how are you?
I'm well, Brian. How are you today?
Doing good. Yeah, great to connect with you again. We've spoken a few times over the last year or two. You've been giving really great feedback on Clarity Flow and the evolution there, and I'm really fascinated to hear your flavor of coaching in the Scrum world today.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to that feedback. It's been awesome changes that have been coming back in too.
Yeah. It's. I mean, this we're not going to get off into a sidetrack right away, but it's just like so much. And I'm sure this is actually pretty related to the type of work that you do with clients. But, as a small shop here with Clarity Flow and evolving the product so much, that it's so difficult to like prioritize which things should we build next or fix next. And feedback from folks like you has been really helpful in that process for sure.
Yeah. Appreciate that. And it's just that giving that feedback it's always kind of, I think, important, right? And it's similar to coaching, right? You hear something, you give some feedback, you point out something that somebody maybe hasn't seen or heard before, and then it's up to them to choose what they want to do with it. I think that's a really cool and powerful thing, and to watch you and I guess maybe others come along and find some of the same benefits and insights has been neat. So I assume it's not just for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the way that I like to start these conversations off and giving, folks a sense of what you do and the type of work for clients, maybe an interesting perspective on that is if you can tell a story or two of like, one or two recent clients that you've worked with, who are they and what's their experience of working with you? Why, who is a client and why would they come to you? What kind of work do you do together?
Yeah. So my work is a blend of both training and consulting. So the training side of things, I've been a professional Scrum trainer for over a decade now, and that's usually like an inroads with people, right? Teach them something that they didn't know about Scrum, about product ownership, about working on complex problems, and just things that constantly adapt and change are unknown until you actually walk there, right? And it's cool that to stuff people's heads through all these great ideas, and then they say, how do we do it? Right? Like, how do we actually make this stuff work? And that's often where the coaching side of things comes in a little bit more, where I'm asked to either provide some guidance or help, even from a pure coaching perspective, reflect back the environment that I see so that those can take ownership of it. The people that I'm working with, and so it's been interesting to see that play out with one client of mine. They're an actuarial company here, based in Brookfield, Wisconsin, Milliman and Telescript. And I've done some training with them for a while. And the coaching side of things has been interesting because we don't actually have a direct coaching like agreement, right? I've done training for them, but I do get contacted by people from the classes around, well, what would you think, like we're running into a certain kind of problem. What do we do about that? Or they'll tell me more about their overall transformational journey, which is cool because like they're going beyond the scope of things that I do. But they still come back to ask me for, how does this fit in? What do you see in this bigger picture? And I think that that's really neat, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm still engaging with them in that kind of way.
There are so many different little paths here that I want to explore. I mean, one is just so interesting how it's really like the combination of training, which sort of branches off into coaching after the training happens. You're also working with companies and teams.
Yep.
It sounds like I kind of want to unpack that dynamic a little bit. But before we even get there, let's just go a little bit more basic. I mean, for folks who are not so familiar with software development or technical teams and Scrum in general, can you just give us a quick overview on what that's all about?
Yeah, totally. And Scrum, it was something that kind of came natural to me. I was in software development for about 12 years and just used it, right? Always worked in a fast and adaptive kind of way. Worked on one like really long plan-based project and a couple months, and I said, this is not for me. Like we're not responding to the things that we're learning. And so
meaning like up front, like some project leader wrote up a long, detailed document of how this big project, this product should be built, and then everyone just like follows the spec
yes,
for like a year or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And when when you're doing things like building a building, you need the spec. If you're doing something repeatedly over and over again, you're trying to go through the same process, you need a spec and you're going to follow it. But when you're building something for the first time, or when you're trying to understand what it is that your customers need, and those could be like, like for your product, right? External customers, Clarity Flow, who's their customers or something, or even internal, right? It just, let's say you're an HR group and your customers are your employees, right? And you're trying to figure out what policies might we use or shouldn't we use that we actually want to take away, and how do they affect our whole organization? There's a lot of stuff that you can plan. And as soon as, you present everyone with whatever it was that you decided, that's when you get all this feedback. We love this. This doesn't work. Can we have more of that, right? And Scrum is just, I would say, is just a way to help manage that, right? You work in 1 month or less chunks of time to build something that you could put into use, right? And it doesn't have to be something large. We're not talking like the whole product, and especially in terms of software, process, whatever, you can probably roll out incremental pieces and updates all the time. And so Scrum just gives you a framework to have the right conversations with the right people at the right time to kind of get that shared understanding of where we are within our developments, what we think would be useful to go forward towards next, and then really focus in on let's not try to build everything. Let's focus on building this thing right now and actually validate, was it useful and beneficial before we go build something else.
So really like kind of boiling down what would seem like a mountain of to-dos and tasks for a big software product or project that needs to be built, kind of boiling it down into like smaller chunks. But I guess maybe not. My understanding of it is kind of a lot less focus on the rest of the chunks and more of a focus on the here and now. Like what's most important first, and let's just take this for a couple of weeks and focus on that.
Yeah, there's
and learn from it and then adapt.
Yeah, and I would say not an absent of a vision of where to go, right? Because there's sometimes Scrum actually backfires with teams where they focus too tightly, right? And that's actually a problem that I coach a lot of groups with is, hey, we just keep getting fed stuff for like right now. And it just feels like everything's changing on us all the time. We don't really seem to have any direction of where we're going. And Scrum and just product development in general has the concept of like, what is your vision for this product? What goal do you have that you're trying to achieve? How we get there doesn't matter as much as the outcomes that we're going for. So yeah, that same part of what is the general thing we're trying to do. And then yes, let's focus on what can we affect right now. And then the other decisions, let's avoid making decisions until we have to, is kind of the way it is, right? So that you don't put too much work into things that won't come to pass.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, I mean, I can probably spend the rest of this podcast just trying to dig in on the technical side of software development and Scrum in general. But I think, what's more interesting for coaches, whether you're technical or not, is kind of the interesting way that you've sort of like connected the dots. We started to talk about this a little bit off air before we started recording here. So tell me about like scrum.org and, because behind this methodology, there's this sort of like organization. Like, how did you get involved in that? And yeah.
Yeah. So scrum.org, I've been, like I said, connected to for, as a trainer for over a decade now, just as well as a consumer, for another 3 years before that, I believe, in my first Scrum class. And I've used Scrum earlier than that still, but Scrum.org generally has a mission of helping teams, people in teams solve complex problems. And I actually work as a staff member for them as well. So it's kind of this bi-directional relationship. I use their materials to conduct my business, and they're a client that I help build more things for, including coaching offerings, which we're leaning into next. And it's a cool organization that is trying to help people just live in the realm of complexity, in the realm of knowledge work, and the kind of things that people struggle with all the time, where there is no just plan, do this and you will be successful. That's where we work.
So
yeah.
So I mean, obviously you're heavily involved with Scrum.org itself, but then how does that sort of like translate to your private practice?
Yeah, so from my private practice standpoint, it mostly translates into me running courses both publicly and privately for people. Usually the individuals come to public classes, right? I'll get singles or maybe groups of 3 that are coming to public classes, and I run a couple of those a year, maybe 10 or so a year. And then private classes where sometimes that's from either a previous client, right, who has gone on to a new opportunity. Those are my favorite, because that's just, if I'm doing the right thing for them and helping them grow and get more out of their situation and take ownership of it, when they have a problem, they might come back to me. And that's what I love about the kind of work that I do and helping me to build my business. And then sometimes
so it's like you would work with a client when they're at one company and then they sort of like move on somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I worked with this really great guy, Rich, who can really help with this sort of problem when they're at a new organization.
Yep, exactly.
Very cool.
I long time ago I worked with Scotiabank, so it was one of Canada's big 4 banks for there, right? And taught lots of people there, worked with a lot of people inside of their IT departments. And one eventually moved on. He reached back out to me and he's like, "Hey, working with a new company, got another team. We seem to be all talking past each other. Can we get on the same page?" Right? I thought you did a really good job of getting us all through the material in the same way, so that we had that shared understanding. So can you do that over here? Right? And so those are great clients, because it's like, they got some success with it, and then they want to help bring that to the new teams that they're working with.
Got it. Can you tell me a little bit more about like what it's like to work with a team? So I'm assuming that these are relatively large companies with many employees, and then they have a large technical team.
Yeah.
That sort of needs to be all working together on the same page toward a similar goal. So like, what type of situation would come up where somebody on the team, like a team leader, starts to initiate, like, I think we need to adopt Scrum, or we need to bring in a Scrum expert? What's happening in that dynamic?
Sometimes it comes from the bottom up, which I think is good, right? There's teams that are just saying, "Hey, I was doing this before. I kind of got my manager a little interested. They think that we might be able to do this a little bit better, either because we want to manage our funding a little bit better. We're not flowing all that well. We're not communicating that well. What can we do to help that go along? Sometimes it's a manager that's kind of bringing it top down. Like I was using this before. Our teams are really struggling. They're not taking much ownership of things. I want to give them the opportunity to actually take that ownership before, handing them work. So let's bring that in. Sometimes it's just a big initiative, like we did it in one pocket and it should work everywhere. And it doesn't always, but that's okay. It's,
Right.
they gotta learn what that is. And so that's usually what brings in the training, and then the coaching perspective of like, why would somebody engage with a professional to get that kind of help is like I said, they hear something very simple. Scrum Guide's like 12 pages if you were to print it out. It's not very large, yet the implications in there and what it means to take collective ownership of work, right? And how do we get people to do that, or to lean into the sense of, since we can't have a perfect plan from the start, we also don't know how long that plan's going to take, and trying to help people understand how that matters less, right? When you're focused on delivering something of value all the time, and hopefully doing that without any end, then trying to figure out into the future what is the end date doesn't matter as much, right? And so that's a struggle for a lot of people, because they bring old baggage, right or wrong, whatever, with them, about a way of working, and they just kind of need to experience something a little bit different and work with each other and a little bit different to get there. So that's where I come in from that angle sometimes.
Huh. And so like what does the structure look like? So I mean, you talked about the trainings, and then there's some coaching. You're working with teams. You're working one-on-one, I guess, in some cases. How does it all fit together? Or maybe if you can take us through a typical client engagement, like from start, like how does it usually begin, and then when are you working with teams as a group? When do you break off into one-on-ones and things like that?
Sure. I think the best ones often start out with like one class, right? There's a group that wants to get together that is looking for some kind of training, and they think, if we just get to this core training, we'll pretty much be good to go. And usually the training opens up so many more windows for them that they have more questions, or they get excited and they want to produce a lot of change internally, but no one else seems to understand it, right? So they'll bring the next 7 teams on for training, right? And so we can all at least speak the same language. That's kind of what training is to me, is we all have the same dictionary, we all have the same set of tools, right?
And that's delivered in like a live
Yes.
workshop
Yeah.
session?
Yeah. So a lot of those are live sessions, virtual or in person. I used to do tons of in person. I do tons of virtual, which is nice because I go back out that back door and I'm home, right?
Yep.
So usually that's live, right? So facilitating a lot of live questions as they're coming up. I try to combine that with additional materials, right? Because for me to tell something to somebody that they could watch like 7 videos on or go read or whatever, I don't know if it's the best use of their time, right? What would be better is for them to actually try to consume some of these materials and come with questions so we can talk through those details and intricacies. But also the classes are a lot of like, put this into practice. Like, here's a scenario, go try something out. Or in one of our classes, I actually want you to build a product as a team. And I'm going to act as, like, let's say, a stakeholder there and tell you what I like about it and what I don't like, and send you on all kinds of different directions. And you have to figure out how to leverage the framework that we gave you, how to adapt. Right. So that part kicks things off. And then I think what usually, plays out nicely there for the next set of engagements is that then we get into some kind of coaching arrangement. To me, the best coaching sessions are when a client is willing to take on some ownership, right? And when we set up an agreement saying like, hey, I'm not here to do the work as a Scrum Master or to do the work as a developer or product owner. I'm not going to tell you what direction to take your product because it's yours, right? For the best way for this to be successful and for this change to be sustainable going forward is that you have to take some ownership. And if I'm not going to get that, I'm often hesitant about getting into a situation, right? Because they can devolve. I don't know if you've ever talked with anyone else in that kind of situation from a coaching perspective before.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I hear a lot from coaches, different types of coaches, is like the hesitancy or just flat out they won't take on clients if they don't feel like the client is coachable,
Hmm.
right? Or not receptive to feedback and change and things like that, which completely makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Um, I would imagine because I've worked in smaller and larger companies before, but like very briefly, I've mostly been independent most of my career in very small remote teams. So I'm kind of curious to know, in your experience, like how do these large company dynamics and politics and like employees and their management, and now you're bringing in like an external Scrum consultant, like how do those dynamics come into play in your work?
They come in a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, a whole lot. I think it's really interesting to see company culture, right, and how different it can be from different organizations and what their background
Hmm.
is, right? Research-based organizations, they want a lot of data before they're willing to make a movement, right? And sometimes we're trying to push ahead, saying it would be quicker to put something out there and actually learn from that than to get the research to choose which thing to go do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And or like a manufacturing company, right? I worked within an IT organization for a manufacturing company one time, and strict tolerances were kind of worked into internal contracts, and a lot of politics about approvals were coming up. And that can be stifling sometimes when I'm pushing them to go and try something different, right? To go a
Mm-hmm.
little further, or to so when I'm acting as a consultant, right, really pushing that open and saying like, you need to go and make a change here. Or as a coach, sometimes I might actually reflect back onto them saying, you see why this is a problem, right? Like your own policies are getting in the way. So what do you want to do about that? Right? That you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
stuck here, or you need to make a change. What's it going to be? And as what the benefit though of me being external is, I can push a little bit more, right? I'm not part of the
Yep.
culture there. I
Yeah.
can say the things that maybe people want to say, maybe that they don't want said at all, but just to really expose it so that at least something you have the option of doing something. Right?
Yeah. And I really like what you just sort of touched on there. And I've had the same sort of approach in like sales conversations or consulting conversations where it's like you don't necessarily need to tell the person what to do or spew a bunch of benefits and key talking points to them. It's really just about asking questions and guiding them down a path to help them coach themselves in a way, or help them, verbalize what they know to be true, and maybe when they say it themselves and they come to that own conclusion, you just sort of ask the right questions to get them there. It can even be more powerful, and they're willing to actually take action on it
Oh
and
yeah,
take ownership of it.
I think my first coaching class 8 or 9 years ago, I guess now, it was just pure professional coaching, and it was shocking to watch how many times that the coaches, like we were acting as coaches and coachees all the time with each other, trying to help each other out through problems, and we're all experts in the same domains. So the
Was this within Scrum, or is this other
this
coaching?
was actually it was a class in the Agile Coaching Institute, so it was still in the Agile space, but it
Mm-hmm.
was with some people that had worked with coactive coaching in the past. So really, I mean, like a professional coaching stance, not nothing about agility, nothing about software, product development. There, just
Mm-hmm.
working to coach people through things, which is great, right? But it was because it was through the Agile Coaching Institute. There were lots of Agile focused and software focused people coming into it,
Right.
and
Right.
all of them wanted to say what they would do or what their experience was or anything immediately upon hearing the story. And that was the one thing we were trying to train out of ourselves, is that you didn't have to be a domain expert in order to
Mm-hmm.
provide useful coaching, but you have to be able to understand how to help hold that accountability with someone, and how to help them expose and reflect back the problems in different kinds of ways, right? And give them the opportunity to solve the problem, because they probably have the skills to do it. They've just gotten themselves stuck along the way.
Hey, just a quick break to tell you about Clarity Flow. It's the software tool loved by coaches and their clients for communicating asynchronously in threaded conversations using video, audio, or text. My team and I designed Clarity Flow for the modern day coach. It lets you give clients a single place to engage with you and all that you offer through your coaching business. Run coaching groups, cohorts, and communities using our Spaces feature. Create interactive courses using our Programs feature. Build your coaching library with templates and reusable content. And sell access to your coaching programs with subscriptions or one-time payments. Customize colors and connect to your domain to give clients a fully branded experience. You can use ClarityFlow on the web or our mobile apps for iPhone, iPad, or Android. And connect any other apps using our Zapier integration. Start with a free trial or request a personalized demo and consultation by going to clarityflow.com. I mean, that actually brings me to something that I usually bring up near the end of these calls. And as a coach, and you're being hired to be the expert, to be the guide. I mean, I can't help but think that there must be some level of imposter syndrome that comes into play, where it's like, well, how does this guy or how do you know have all the answers, you know? But what you just said there, it's like it's really not about you. It's about guiding and asking the right questions and letting them take ownership of it.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
I have suffered from imposter syndrome many times throughout my career, and probably still do sometimes. But I think there's a couple of things that I've gotten more comfortable with. I've gotten more comfortable in telling people that I don't know, right? But you do, and that's what's important here. Like, you know something, and as you just mentioned, if we can work through this together, and you can explain it to me, then maybe you'll understand better how to go and do it yourself. It's like, if you're teaching somebody something, you sometimes learn more about it than they do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So in that sense, if you can figure out how to explain it, sometimes it clicks, and that's really cool. And I think the other important aspect, what just popped out of my head, is telling just stories. Like, I have expertise over my experiences, right? And I have stories that are totally different than Brian, than your stories, and than anyone that's listening. But we can probably find common ground. We can find that frustrating time where we had an opportunity to go move something ahead, but somebody was just blocking us, right, over and over again. And it's just, it feels like you're just pounding against the wall, and like, you're looking for that crack or something there, right? And so when I can tell that story, or I can share a story of failure, right, of just of being in a review and suddenly having nothing to show, and standing in front of 70 people and talking that through, right, of what's it like to fail in front of the people that are paying for this thing, right? And how do you turn that into something useful? Then that can be something that they can pull back, right, when they get into their moment of, oh, I had a story too, right? And so I'm trying to help people come to terms with their own stories a lot of times too, as, hey, you're going to get through here, and every experience you come into later will probably be different. How do you pull something core from that experience to guide you into the future, to guide somebody else, to help mentor somebody else grow a little bit further, and lean into that?
Love it. Let's get back into sort of the structure of things.
Yeah.
Between your trainings and the engagement, the coaching engagements. I'm curious to know, maybe in the last couple of months or last couple of years, what kind of changes have you made, or things that you've learned about how you deliver your services?
Yes.
That have been maybe turning points, and things really started to work out well, or just a lot smoother once you made these changes in your approach.
Yeah, thanks. I think a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous has become a lot more apparent to me, right? Because from a training perspective, I was always doing things synchronously, and I found ways to do it a little bit more asynchronously. But I think the interesting concept that has come up is that when I was coaching people a couple years ago, I was often traveling to their site. Sometimes I was here within the state. Sometimes it was, a plane flight away. And so I'm kind of captive, right? I'm there. I'm, here for maybe some meetings. I'm here for other times. And I always kind of felt like, how is that being used most appropriately by my clients? And because I don't just want to walk in and say, well, I've got nothing to do, so I'm just going to, sit in on your meeting and start speaking out of turn. That doesn't help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe it does, but I didn't feel like it helped. So I
Mm-hmm.
often felt like I was not always getting the most use out of the time. So I'd start doing more asynchronous kind of things. So usually it was just email at the time, right? So what can we do in that kind of way? We're sending documents back and forth with each other with some comments. And so, but there is a coaching aspect that comes along into that of, I don't have a lot of time. It takes a while to read and consume these things. So let me go and put that out and then see how that sits with somebody. Sometimes it takes them a day or two to figure it out and then they come back. But, the ball's kind of back in their court. And when you're doing
Yep.
coaching, that's really powerful. And going virtual, that I've felt even more of that, right? Because to sit in on somebody else's meeting in their company for 2 hours virtually, do I interrupt and take over
Mm-hmm.
everyone's time? How much do I just consume and report back later? And sometimes it's really valuable, right? If the structure is focused on, hey, we're here to leverage Rich and some of his understanding of what he sees based off of what's going on around us, or to leverage his expertise, do that. But then the rest of it's better when it's kind of ad hoc, because then people can go and do their work, and when they see the issue come up, right, and we
Yeah.
respond in time.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, I can imagine that it's so dependent on, so if you're doing a live session, especially in person
Mm-hmm.
on site, it's so dependent on kind of what's going on that day. And, maybe the stakeholders involved, they might be having a great day. They might be having an off day. You don't like, are they busy? Is their mind somewhere else? Whereas with asynchronous, it what I keep trying to verbalize this in different ways, but of course it's more convenient. You can deal with time zones, you can have more space, but to me it's more about the freedom and the space to consume and think and research and prepare your next response,
Yeah.
right? So there's the convenience factor, but it's also like, Rich just sent me this thing. I'm going to kind of think on it and maybe take a walk, maybe come back to him tomorrow once I have something really useful to come back to. Or as you said, maybe putting it into practice in real time. Like
Yeah.
let's wait out the week and see when a situation like this bubbles up, and then that's a moment to kind of capture or communicate around, right?
That last part I think is really cool, and actually it's what I've been spending, I'd say, more of my time than less over the past 3 years doing. I was trying to help Scrum.org establish a program in late 2018, 2019, and then we started really going into it in earnest in 2020 about, like, could we validate the working proficiency of Scrum Masters that we didn't actually work with, right? Because there's Scrum Master, or Scrum.org has a lot of assessment-based certifications, knowledge type things of um, how would you answer these questions. That tells us that you know enough about Scrum to be able to, be a pretty competent Scrum Master. But how have you done it is a totally different thing. And we
Mm-hmm.
started with a lot of synchronous discussions, right? Of just asking questions, trying to see what they're doing, learning more about it, kind of getting a sense for, yeah, you seem pretty good here, but I'm not so sure. So let me ask you some things to go do to prove to me that the things I thought you were good at, you're actually good at. And then I need to expose a little bit more. So let me give you a couple things I want you to do to kind of tease out, did I have the right opinion, the right opinion here, or can we help you grow there? And what became clear over time is sort of that, almost like a front loading of an asynchronous conversation, that let's have a synchronous conversation to talk about outcomes and where we might want to go in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then say, hey, I think here's like 4 things that you should consider looking at and working on when the time's right. Right.
Yep.
And so it's not even so much of that constant delay response, but it's really here's something for you for that when you're ready and you come back to it. Like you just said, let's get our team to go through this for the week and then come back and say, oh, wow, yeah, actually, this really helped. But you need to reflect it with somebody, right? You need to get that feedback loop closed to say,
Mm-hmm.
did I really see that this was as good as it was? And telling that story then back to a coach, right? So that they can help
Right.
you see more in that story is immensely valuable for like that deeper level of growth.
Yeah, and also kind of like getting it when it's fresh, right? Like this
Yeah.
just happened this morning. Let me tell you about it. rather than trying to remember back something that might have happened weeks ago.
And yeah, for like the next live coaching session kind of thing. It's like, no, 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 no. Just tell me now. Record yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Write it down, whatever it needs to be, just so you've got that kind of the evidence captured of what
Yeah.
happened, and you're ready to go and build upon that evidence in the future.
And then the other side of the coin, of course, is you, right? Like, how are you managing your time, and how has that changed as you mentioned, like you recent years that you've obviously moved to a lot more virtual,
Yeah.
and this move toward kind of a hybrid between the sync, the live calls, and the asynchronous stuff. What does that look like on your end? How are you receiving messages in your inbox? How do you manage your day and your time? Because I think that's another thing from a lot of coaches who are sort of new to the idea of incorporating asynchronous aspects into their practice. It can seem like, well, now you're opening yourself up to just a barrage of requests and messages. And how do you sort of manage that?
Um, I'll admit I'm still getting better at it. But I think what's helped me, honestly, just being independent for the past 7 years, I've learned how to manage my time, right? How my time is my time, and that's a really important thing to me. And I think that maybe looks different for, like I said, some new coaches, or internal coaches, if you're doing work inside of an organization and you are like a full-time job kind of thing. But even then, are you really doing like work with other people full time, or are you sometimes reading, trying to gather new information for yourself that might help you, or go to workshops to help you work with others. So I do a little bit of that every week, right? I'm reading various articles. I'm going through books that I've read before just to get a new sense of context. I'm trying to go to different workshops, but from the flow, the incoming flow. Something that I've experimented with is not just respond immediately, right? Because it is asynchronous, right? And the world expects instant gratification on a lot of things, and I try to temper that readily by saying,
Mm-hmm.
by either giving like a service level expectation to say, hey, about 80% of the time I respond within 2 days, right? So,
Yeah.
but sometimes I'm on vacation, or I'm in a class, or I'm busy doing something. So it's not always, but you'll probably see a response from me in about 2 days. Um,
You know what? And I find that most people, especially, professionals, that understanding is sort of baked in to the act of messaging asynchronously, right? So
I'm
if I'm
not
on
sure I
a,
agree.
I mean, of course, there are different cases, but I mean, for example, customer support, right? If I'm using a product and I need customer support, a lot of these companies are offering like live chat, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, where it's like, if you're offering live chat, I actually want it to be live. Like, if I send a message, I would like a response back like within minutes, because you're telling me it's a live chat. But in my experience, like, I generally don't even want to use live chat. I would much prefer an asynchronous option where I can submit a message, or send a message, send an email, submit a form. And I know that by sending that, like, I can move on with my day, and I'll expect a response within a business day or two,
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess like different clients handle this differently, but I guess just the
Yeah.
nature of it, it's like you're not there live face to face. It is asynchronous, right? So
Well, and I think that that's another thing that a coach or any consultant should be doing with a client when they're going to engage with them, right?
mhm.
Is starting to set up, one, just what do we agree upon? Who's really owning what kinds of things? What is our expectation for just sharing information, communication, right? Because like these are just some core contracts that help us communicate better. Not they're there to provide just enough boundaries to make it more effective, right?
Like,
Um,
this is how we will work together, how we will communicate.
yeah, yeah. So, when you're doing that, it's kind of important because, as well, different countries, different regions and cultures have different expectations on that too. And like
Mm-hmm.
it's more ad hoc and everything, but I'm constantly chatting with a person in Japan who's doing coaching out there, right, for an
Mm-hmm.
organization, and she's talking about the struggles that she's running into just culturally, right, and she's more integrated with that culture, than I am, but to hear that, and then at least for us, the nice thing is she'll put out a message sometime in the middle of the night. And if I see it and I have time to respond the next day, I will. And if not, at some point, I'll get back to her. And we know that that time zone difference is both an impediment and a benefit, right? Especially if you lean into the asynchronous side of things. Whereas if it's like, I know we're in the same time zone, we should be responding, you should be there. That's a little bit harder, I think, sometimes to overcome.
Got it. Got it. Huh. As we sort of wrap this up, I mean, we're recording this near second half of 2023. Of course,
Yeah.
folks will be listening to this or watching it at any time. But what are you sort of excited about right now, this year, looking ahead to the rest of this year? Any sort of trends or work habits or new evolutions in the way that you approach coaching with your clients? What are you really excited about right now?
Yeah, I think two things are really exciting me. One is that with all the economic turmoil that has gone on in organizations recently, it's made people pretty afraid, right? I would say that. Am I going to have a job? Can I get a job, right? And even organizations, can I hire people, right? Because they're struggling with, can I work remotely? Do I have to be in person? Do we find the right skills, right? So you see it from all these different angles, and while I think there's still pieces of that happening, it's starting to edge away. At least from what I'm seeing when I'm talking to companies, that they're starting to stabilize. Maybe they're not hiring right now, but they've got a team, and it's a team of some new people, and it's a team of some existing people, and they all restructured internally, and now they got to figure out how they want to work together. And that's a great opportunity for them to work through their own situation, and as well for a coach to come in and say, hey, I'm not here to to own this and tell you what to do, but I can help smooth this out. I can help you get to cohesion a little bit quicker as a team of people than not. So I'm excited for that. I think that there's going to be a little bit more movement and opportunity in those kinds of places.
Nice.
I think the other thing that I'm excited for is, like I said, at least with the work I've been doing with Scrum.org, we're trying to launch a series of, or like a platform of work, assignments, and just people that can help support them in a coaching type sense of doing this more asynchronous style of learning and development, to get it to, I guess, be okay with the fact that not all learning happens in the classroom, right? There's so much learning that happens when you're doing the work, and yet, if somebody can't afford a coach to come in full time, doesn't want to pay somebody to sit there, and it's like, what are you doing? You just look like you're doing your taxes. Well, I am, and I'm listening to you. It's how you stop paying attention to me, right? That kind of thing.
Right.
To have this asynchronous way, I think, can support digital organizations from around the world, right? So that coaches aren't just limited to their town. They can really stretch out and benefit people, and have the whole world be exposed to these great people that can help them grow in a very proactive way, right? It's that by giving some people assignments to go and take their knowledge and just refocus their work a little bit differently, reflect on that, and build up this kind of portfolio of work over time, right? Almost like you would a resume or a CV, but or more likely like an artist portfolio, but of your actual work, and that you can pull back upon, that you can show evidence of, that you can use to continue to grow in the future.
I mean, I just love the idea of like this, how Scrum.org has not only put out these concepts and frameworks and methodologies on how to work, but really bringing together a worldwide community around this of practitioners, of teams, coaches, and it just seems like a really great thing, because team members coming in and seeking that guidance, and then folks like you there to kind of put it all together and connect the dots.
Yeah.
And I just really love that. Obviously, it's a big focus for us at Clarity Flow, but the combination now of courses and training with coaching, they really go hand in hand. Like you say, like training kind of stems, or coaching stems off from training. It's like a natural extension, and something that we're seeing a lot with coaches taking like personalizing training programs, taking bits and pieces and matching them up, personalizing them to each client, and then having individualized coaching off of that. It makes total sense. So the model that you do with your clients and with Scrum.org, I think it's a beautiful match.
Yeah, I think it's really neat to see the other side around too, right? As we advance this current product that we've been working on, we're also looking to expand our community, right? We've got a great set of people who are experts in Scrum, who have a lot of deep experience in it, and are wonderful at training and facilitating, these concepts, right? In very focused settings. But we've always had at our core the concept that we should be working with organizations more directly in a consultative or coaching perspective, or actually being, hired and part of these organizations to drive change from within, right? And be a part of it. So we know what that feels like. So we have more stories, more experience to push out into the world. And so we're essentially going to expand our community specifically in that area for the people that are focused on mentorship, personal development, coaching, consulting, etc. We want to highlight them more and give them a platform to grow off of in that kind of way, so that you combine these things, right? That you just mentioned training can lead to more coaching because you take a knowledge concept and then you need to figure out how to apply it. And then sometimes coaching leads to more training, right? Where you're already in the midst of something. You've been coaching a scenario, a client, maybe it's an individual or a team, and you realize that there's a knowledge gap. So that leads to, like you said, either customized individual learning or other training, opportunities for whole teams to get involved with, so that they can grow. And all we are is trying to get people to have a little bit more knowledge about another way of working, and then getting them to figure out how to actually get it applied to their work itself.
Yeah. Well, Rich, this is really insightful. Thank you for sharing everything. We'll of course get all of your stuff linked up in our show notes here. I mean, where can people connect with you most of the time, day to day?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, if you're ever in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you might find me just roaming around in town and at the local breweries around here. But you can also reach me, Rich at jointinsights.com. Is there, or rich.clarityflow.com/I for my intake
Oh,
page.
there you go.
So you can always connect with me there, and my website as well, or find me on scrum.org. I'm one of our professional Scrum trainers and staff members there. So always happy to help out. Reach out anytime.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Rich.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be here.